This HR lady, on it like it is. This HR lady, breaking it all down. This HR lady, drama is her business. This HR lady.
Hello and welcome back to the channel. I have a question for you. Have you ever had a background check cost you a job? And I'm not talking about something that is on your record that happened last month. I'm talking about something from years ago. You've grown up, you made better choices, you went back to school, maybe even got your degree, but every time you try to move forward, your past shows up in all of its ugly glory. Well, one of my subscribers recently reached out with this exact same problem, and that's actually why I'm making this video today. This started with a subscriber. So he told me he has some misdemeanors from his past, but he's older now. He's matured, he's made better choices, but he feels like these old mistakes keep locking him out of opportunities. And I could hear the frustration. Heck, I was frustrated for him because at some point you start wondering, how long am I supposed to keep paying for something I already paid for? So the subject of expungement came up and we started looking at the options in his state. And that's where things got really interesting. Initially, we were thinking expungement. But after looking into it, we discovered that the infractions on his record didn't fit the requirements for expungement. Instead, sealing may be the option available to him. And there's a difference. Generally speaking, expungement can remove a record. Now, sealing, on the other hand, doesn't necessarily erase anything from your record. Instead, it restricts access to that record. And depending on the state and the circumstances, that can make a huge difference when you're trying to get a job. But here's what surprised us even more. The sealing process in his state didn't appear to be nearly as expensive as we expected. And there were resources available that could potentially help with most of the cost. And that's when I thought, wait a minute, how many other people are walking around with this same problem and they don't know that these options exist? Now, let me talk HR real quick. I've been on the other side of these background checks. I've spent years working in HR and hiring employees, and I've worked for companies that handle background checks very differently. At most companies, a third-party vendor conducts the background check, and as the HR professional, I could actually see what was on the candidate's record. But I've worked for other companies where I couldn't see the record at all. All I received was the result, a pass or a fail. So people may think HR knows everything that's on my record. That's not necessarily true. It depends on the company, the process, the vendor, and what information HR is authorized to access. But here's the part that people don't see. I've had to communicate with candidates when a background check failed. And I've heard people's whole demeanor change. Sometimes it's devastation, sometimes it's embarrassment, but sometimes it's almost like this quiet resignation, like they've been through this before. And they're like, here we go again. Those conversations aren't easy. And whenever I've had to deliver difficult news like that, I've always tried to do it delicately because I'm talking to a person, not a case number, not a conviction, a person. And you don't always know the story behind what you're looking at. And here's where I stand. I believe in accountability. Yeah. If you make a bad decision, there can absolutely be consequences. But I also believe there has to be room for redemption. If somebody made a mistake, serve their sentence, change their behavior, grew up, stopped hanging with the wrong folks, built a family, and hasn't repeated that behavior, at what point do we actually allow them to move forward? I don't believe someone should be permanently locked out of opportunity because of a couple of bad mistakes. And that's why my subscriber story hit me the way it did, because he's done what people tell him to do, that he's supposed to do. And yet there's still this record limiting his interest into the workplace and keeping him out of opportunities he's qualified for. Now, this is not just about feelings. These are real employment and livelihood consequences. And this issue deserves attention when we talk about Black men in particular. It is a fact that Black men have experienced disproportionate contact with the criminal justice system. So when criminal records become long-term barriers to employment, that burden can fall on Black men hard. Now, the EEOC has specifically recognized that criminal record screening policies can create racial disparate impact, meaning it can impact certain races more than others. Now, that doesn't mean the employers can never consider a conviction, because they can. But employers also need to think about whether their policies are actually job related and consistent with the business necessity. For example, if someone has an old DUI and they're applying for an accounting position where they never drive for the company, that DUI may have very little relationship to their ability to perform that job. That's very different from applying for a commercial driving position where that DUI could play a factor on whether they're considered for the hire. Here's what really got my attention though. Researchers in Michigan found that within 1 year of getting their records expunged, people were earning about 22% more than before. And that's why I'm talking about this on an HR channel, because this isn't only a criminal justice issue. This is a workforce issue. It's an employment issue. It's an income issue, and it's an opportunity issue. But here's the problem. Even when people qualify for record clearing relief, many never get it. The Michigan study found that only about 6.5 of eligible people obtain an expungement within 5 years of becoming eligible. Think about that. 6.5%. The opportunity may exist, but people may not know about it, or the process may seem intimidating. There may be paperwork, court procedures, fees, or they may simply assume I have a record, there's nothing I can do about it. But there is. It's called clean slate. And as I started to dig into this, I found a growing number of states have enacted what is commonly called the clean slate laws. The basic idea is that certain eligible records can be cleared or sealed automatically, instead of requiring every eligible person to figure out the process for themselves. In Illinois, they became the 13th state to enact this clean slate law. And actually, in 2029, they're going to go to an automatic sealing system. That will happen in January of 2029. Now, that does not mean that every offense qualifies. No, it doesn't mean every record disappears. And the rules vary from state to state, so you have to look into it. But that's exactly why I wanted to present this information and encourage people to start asking questions. So, what do I want you to do? Well, if you've been struggling to get hired and you believe something on your criminal record may be holding you back, find out what's actually on your record. Don't assume. And don't automatically assume that there's nothing that can be done, or that expungement is your only option, or that it's too expensive. That was one of the biggest takeaways from the conversation with my subscriber. We started talking about expungement and discovered we really needed to be looking at sealing. After that, find out what resources are available in your state. Look for legal aid. Look for expungement or record sealing clinics. Look for your state's official court resources, because assistance may be available for far less money than you think. And if you're watching this because this is your story, I want you to hear me. Your past may be a part of your story. It doesn't have to be the last chapter of it. Accountability matters, but so does growth. So does rehabilitation. And so does opportunity. If the laws say you have earned the opportunity to clear or seal that record, find out what your options are and just do it. I hope this video was helpful. If you have a workplace question you'd like for me to tackle, or there's something happening to you at work and you're wondering, hey, Miss HR Lady, can they actually do this? Send it to me at heymshrlady@gmail.com. Your question just might become the next conversation we have right here on this channel. And before you leave, like this video, share it with somebody who needs to get this information, and subscribe, because there's a whole lot of things happening in the workplace, and we like to talk about them right here. Until next time.
Calling it like it is.
Miss HR Lady.
Breaking it all down.
Miss HR Lady.
Drama is a business. Miss HR Lady.